أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما ربي ارزقني علما اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وتوكل الله وكفى بالله وكيلا سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم. So we begin today with Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 11, and we will journey all the way to Ayah 18. From the face of it, it feels like it's a description of a group of people or certain kinds of people who are hypocrites. And yet, what Allah Ta'ala is doing here, in the way only He knows how, the most powerful way, is identifying almost a blueprint, not almost, it is a mapping, a blueprint of spiritual blindness. In psychology, what we call cognitive dissonance. And again, also in psychology, what we call the inversion of reality. So when we begin off with Surah, with Ayah 11, it says, and when it is said to them, do not cause corruption on the earth, they say, we are but reformers. Unquestionably, it is they who are the corruptors, but they perceive it not. They who are the corruptors. And there is a difference between how they, like a distinct line between who they actually are and how they perceive themselves. So the spiritual blindness, the cognitive dissonance begins from who they actually are on the inside and how they project themselves, even to themselves, within themselves and to the outside world. So it's a metaphysical blind spot. Because what hypocrisy is what, in fact? Hypocrisy is a line, it's a disruption, it's a crack that alienates us from our original self, the original self, which is Fitrah. So it creates a fundamental rupture between metaphysical reality, which is the Ruh aspect of us, which is the Fitrah aspect of us, and the subjective perception, which is the Insan aspect of us. So the hypocrite is not how we have been asked to look at people as. A hypocrite is a Munafiq. They don't just lie. The people who don't just lie to others, they have actually severed their own connection to their own Fitrah. What is Fitrah? It's the untainted original human nature. And they have, because they have severed their connection to their own Fitrah so deeply that they're in fact lying to themselves. So the hypocritical aspect of us begins when we tell ourselves lies which are not in alignment with our divine blueprint. Our Fitrah is based on justice. Our Fitrah is based on haqq, which is the truth. Our Fitrah is based on kindness. Our Fitrah is based upon standing up against the oppressor, which is, even if it is ourselves, and against oppression, even if it is against the people that we love. So that's the metaphysical blind spot of a person who is lying to themselves, a hypocrite which is disconnected, a person who's disconnected from their Fitrah. And this, in fact, creates, because remember, we are a part of a cosmic blueprint. My soul blueprint is a part of a cosmic blueprint. In the cosmic blueprint, if I am disconnected with myself, I'm actually creating dissonance in the cosmic order. And so in the metaphysical space, Islah, which is peace, it is in alignment with divine law, while corruption, which is Fasad, is a deviation from it. But because the person who lies to themselves, which is a hypocrite, because the internal compass is broken, they actually perceive chaos as order and destruction as progress. And we've seen that happen in our lives. I'm not even talking about big mega movies here. I'm talking about families. I'm talking about people that we know. How we sometimes act, which is I'm doing it for the sake of something that I believe to be true. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating a rupture in the system of peace. And again, these are the nuanced aspects, right? If I call out an oppressor who is creating fitna in a household, even if it is my own family member, I am not against my fitrah. In fact, to stand up against oppression is a part of our fitrah, because remember, it is rooted in justice. But the difference between people who do that is because when they lie to themselves, they're not actually aligned with the truth. And when they're not aligned with the truth, they perceive not. La yash'urun, la yash'urun. Do not. They do not. They point to it points to a loss of like this, almost like this intuitive spiritual awareness. And it's beautifully linked to the ayah, 13th ayah, which goes on to say, and which is said to them, believe as the people have believed. They said, should we believe as the foolish have believed? Unquestionably, it is they who are foolish, but they know not. And again, we know that. We know that of what we call people megalomaniacs or narcissists or people with superiority disorders or have some sort of rupture in the mental process. There's an illusion of superiority. I am better than the other. I am better because of my mind. I'm better because of my wealth. I'm better because of my connections. I'm better because of my social standing. All of these are outward projected lies, which are needed to uphold the inward lie the hypocrite has told to themselves. It's the calculating ego mind. It's called aql al-ma'ash. Ma'ash, you can see, is so limited. It's just the economics of it. So the calculating ego mind. And that calculating ego mind, when it's not looking at an immediate benefit, when it's not looking at that, it views the deeply simple surrendered faith of the believers as foolish or simplistic. And so there's an illusion which is built upon the resources from the outside. But then there is a truth that we have been born with, which we call ma'rifah. And in this ayah, in ayah 13, Quran actually flips the definition of intelligence. And this is a challenge to us to flip our definition of intelligence, because we believe people who get their degrees from certain prestigious universities or earning a certain six-figure amount in a certain foreign currency, all of these, we believe, are examples of or are measures of superiority, measures of intellect, measures of intelligence. But Quran completely challenges that. It's like true intellect, akal, is the faculty that recognizes the ultimate truth. If we're not connected to Allah, if we're not connected to the ultimate truth, then we are cutting ourselves off from the divine source. When we cut ourselves off from the divine source, we trap ourselves in the state of ignorance. And it's a static ignorance. It's an ignorance that's static because it refuses to shift, static because it perceives as anything other than themselves as foolish. And so Allah Ta'ala says they are foolish, but they know not, la ya'lamun, meaning they lack the highest spiritual knowledge, the deeper spiritual knowledge, to even realize their own lack of understanding. And in ayah 14 and 15, again, this is, and when they meet those who believe, they say, we believe. But when they're alone with their evil ones, they say, indeed, we are with you. We are only mockers. But Allah mocks them, astaghfirullah, and prolongs them in their transgression while they wander blindly. This is the spiritual blindness that we are talking about throughout the ayahs, because there's a sense of fragmentation. At a metaphysical level, a believer aims for tawheed, oneness, right? Integration of the heart, speech, and action. Whatever is within my heart must be represented by my actions. I am within as I am without. The hypocrite, the person who lies to themselves, however, they exist in a state of spiritual schizophrenia. They split their identity depending on their environment. And you'd notice, sometimes we take this pride saying this about ourselves, that, I'm very many different people depending on which group I'm in. That's a red flag. That's a spiritual red flag. Because if we lack the consistency, or if we're struggling with the consistency of being our true, honest selves, if we have to act as what are they called? वो जो गिरगिट होते हैं, I've forgotten the chameleons. If we have to act as chameleons, clearly we are not aligned to our own truth, but also we're putting ourselves in situations which are bringing out the fragmented parts of us. So if we are acting as our more spiritual, which is aligned with our truth, haq selves in a group of friends, but we're unable to do that in our homes, then that means that we are struggling with the consistency of our faith, with the tawheed of our soul, one. And second, we are finding ourselves to be in a place, because places have great energetic pull as well, huh? And they have a great energetic pull to bring out the most hidden, wounded parts of ourselves. So if we're not being able to live our truth and speak our truth, which is the truth of justice, truth of peace, of of love, actually, as well. If we're not being able to do that because we're not treated in that way in a place, then know that that place is energetically lacking to give us what we desire. And yet, the tragedy of our relationships and of our life experiences, that we choose to spend a lot of time, a long, long time of our lives in places that do not honor our truth. And not only do they not honor our truth, they push it down. And in fact, they make it sound like it is the most unworthy thing there is. And when we get used to living in places where we're used to our unworthiness being exemplified for others, and used as weapons in fights, then we begin to believe that about ourselves. And so there's a split. There's a hypocritical aspect of it that begins to develop within ourselves. And so to take ourselves away from those places, because places are not stationary. Nothing is stationary. Everything has a magnetic quality. Places are magnets. Whether those are homes or our offices or our cafes or or cinemas or concerts or the roads, all of these are magnetic fields. And that, which is why we're asked to be very, not wary, I would say mindful of the places that we allow ourselves to connect with, because we are taking on their energy and we are in fact allowing their magnetic pull to interact with us and pull out the wounded parts of us. So places, people, relationships which bring out the other aspect of us, which is not aligned with divine truth, are not spaces meant for us anymore. And in the second part of this, and the reason why this is important, it's not just these places harm us. It's not just about a moment of us in a place. Because the second part of this ayah says, and Allah mocks them and prolongs them in their transgression while they wander blindly. So we know that in the law of metaphysics, whatever energy, whatever magnetism we're carrying on the inside is projected on the outward, and therefore there's a law of echo. Right? The law of echo is whatever we carry, the universe reflects back to us. So if we are carrying deceit and self-denial and lying to ourselves within ourselves, then the universe will reflect back to us exactly these frequencies, exactly these lower vibrations through relationships, through people, through interactions, through experiences. And so, although to keep ourselves safe, although to keep our unworthiness locked in the box that we've put it in, we like to grant ourselves a false sense of security. We like to say, no, 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 my family is safe. No, they give me money, they give me, status. They've taken care of me. But it's the same family which has also allowed me to feel completely unworthy of my love and my acceptance by my own creator, of my own self. And so when we grant ourselves this false sense of security and we begin to stay with those people in those relationships, in those homes, which convince us that we are unworthy, so much so that we begin to lie to ourselves. You see, the to feel that we are unworthy is the original lie. To believe that we are not divine is the original lie. To believe that forgiveness has to be earned consistently is the original lie. We are in a divine field. We are a rose garden planted in the divine garden. Our mitti is divine. And so whatever grows from that mitti is divine originally. And yet, when we begin to associate ourselves with a garbage heap right in front of us, and that garbage heap being this dunya, and I'm not saying the dunya, all of it is garbage heap. I'm talking about a wounded place or a personal relationship, and something that's been with us for a long time, and begin to pay a lot of attention to that garbage heap, begin to look at ourselves from the eyes of that garbage heap, so much so that we forget that we are growing in a rose garden and we are not garbage. And yet the garbage heap would have us convinced that we are indeed, because we're in such close proximity to it. So we must be, because we're reeking of it. It's not true. But when we disrupt this original lie of us not being Allah's beloved, of not being beloved of the whole universe, of not being the Khalifa of the whole universe, when we disrupt this lie, then the universe, through the law of echo, begins to reveal to us, begins to echo back to us our own divinity. And that own divinity is echoed back to us in the form of miracles, in the form of beautiful people, strangers, opportunities, instances, magic, pure magic. But if we continue to lie to ourselves, then what happens is in that first lie where I'm not worthy, I will begin to act from a place of unworthiness. Acting from a place of unworthiness means I will take one action, then another, and another. Then my behavior will shift because of that action. Then I'll continue to go deeper into that behavioral quicksand. And I will go further and further away in my perception from my rose garden, which is I. But of course, I'm not further away, it's the perception. But the perception is everything. The perception is everything. Because in any case, we're living in an illusion. And whichever, if we choose to feed the illusion becomes stronger. If we choose to feed the truth, which is divine, which is haq, which is beauty, which is I am beloved, which is I am forgiven already, that I am the most precious beautiful being because I am of Allah and from Allah and with Allah and through Allah and to Allah, then there's there are not many places left to wander. But when we are away from that, our own divinity, our own fitrah of love and of absolute love that we're receiving in every moment, then we begin to wander blindly. Yamahun, completely losing our orientation in the spiritual landscape because we begin to rate ourselves, value ourselves through the eyes of the world, which at the end of it is so insignificant and not worthy of our attention as much as we like to give it. And yet we still give it the power to judge us and value us and put a price tag on our self-worth. Subhanallah. Ayah 16, they are the ones who have purchased error in exchange for guidance. Oh, subhanallah. So their transaction has brought no profit, nor were they guided. So Allah, when we say Islam is a religion, it's a completely, it's a very limited point of view and a limiting point of view, because Islam is a way of being insan in this dunya, and an insan which is aware of itself is a moment. So way of being insan in this dunya, in the with the guidance of insan becoming mu'min. That's why Quran existed. And so there is exists within ourselves and on the outside. And so there is a give and take here. And Allah Ta'ala recognizes in the metaphysical world also this exchange, this metaphysical exchange is recognized. You get what you put in. And so there's something called the cosmic barter. Every human soul enters this world with a built-in capital. We already are full. Our soul balancer, bank balances and lockers are full. And that capital bank balance, that capital is called Fitrah. And it's the capital of guidance, of hidayah. But when we begin to live in the world and we begin to forget our fitrah, we begin to use our capital and instead begin to dip into a different capital altogether, that capital is the capital of misguidance. And so the way that the cosmic barter system has been designed, when you invest from a place of fitrah, we will get mega returns. We will get infinite returns. But when we invest from a place of misguidance, our return will be zero. It actually yields zero spiritual density or permanence. So you know what Allah Ta'ala said at the time that we are standing in at Yawm al-Qiyam, on Yawm al-Qiyam, at the place in front of Allah, and there is a scale that's going to be raised. So we can look at it from a physical aspect, we can also look at it from a metaphysical aspect. And Allah says in that scale there's some deeds that we would have done, that we would have placed, and those deeds would, although would have looked so heavy, would weigh nothing, zero. And the some which would look so light but would have immense spiritual capital. That physical aspect of the weighing scale is the cosmic barter that Allah Ta'ala is bringing to life, that exists within us in every moment. And so when we choose to move away from our fitrah and begin to act, which is invest from a place of misguidance, then we are left bankrupt in the realm of ultimate reality. Ultimate reality, remember, it's metaphysical, not just physical. And then one of my favorite ayahs, which is ayah 17 to 18, which is the metaphors of extinction and darkness, of the difference between light and fire. And it's a beautiful from a root word perspective also. You just see how powerful it is. Their example, this is Ayah 17 to 18. Their example is that of one who kindled a fire, but when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, so they could not see. And then Allah says, we deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return. So there's a metaphysical tragedy unfolding here. When Allah says, when they kindled a fire, this is an external spark, because we believe fire is something that can be seen and felt. And so therefore we try to kindle those fires, whether those are social fires or mental fires, of status, of money, of belonging, of connection, of power, of privilege. All of these are external sparks, kindled fires. They've been worked on very strongly, for example, from through our generations, and the world has told us this is kindled fire that we're working towards is all that matters. But when it is illuminated, when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light, subhanallah. And just when our fire becomes big, and we've experienced those what we call the dark night of the soul, whether it's through the loss, and always comes to loss of health, of relationships, of wealth, through our children. We're tested in every way, subhanallah, of our status, of our social standing, however it is, of our jobs. So when those kindled fires, when the fires become big enough and they begin to illuminate things around them, subhanallah, look at this. The fire that we've built is a fire of illusion. The only thing that can illuminate will be more illusion. So as it begins to, that kindle fire begins to illuminate, look how far I've come, look how much I'm earning, look how big my business has gotten, look how many hotels I own, look how many friends I have, look at how many children I have, look how well they're doing in the world. This is the illumination of the kindled fire. And then what happens? Divine intervention. The light is taken, and Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, subhanallah. Because when Allah takes away the light of the kindled fire, which can only illuminate illusions, what is left is the spiritual darkness. Because, we're not meant to. The spiritual darkness, which is the loss of our internal senses. We're left deaf and dumb and blind. And there's a permanent disconnection from our fitrah. So the beautiful knowing in this particular ayah is this, that we are born with a life force of an internal fire. And it's not a fire that we have to kindle. We're born with it. There's a fire of our fitrah. That fire illuminates haqq. That fire is a life force that takes us forward. That fire blazes original pathways which we call miracles, amazing things happening just at the right time, divine intervention. That fire we are born with. And when we forget to tend to the fire that we already have, and begin instead to gather the wood from the external world and kindle fires from the external world, forgetting the fire we have, that's where we begin to feel this rupture, this disconnection from our divine self. And no matter how bright our mansions would look then, no matter how bright our multi-billion-dollar buildings would look then, the emptiness of our hearts tell a different story. The darkness of our hearts tell a different story. There is a loss of senses in the within. Eyes can hear things, but we cannot hear the voice of truth. Our tongues can sell multi-billion or million-dollar projects, but we cannot tell things of truth. We cannot remember, which is a zikr of Allah. We cannot remember the truth. Our eyes perhaps can find beauty in yachts and in amazing dinners and like in designer stuff, and we'll be able to see the superficial element of it, but our eyes cannot perceive Allah in the beauty of the world around us. And so look at this. There's the difference. Light is nur versus fire, which is nar. One alphabet. One. Light, nur versus fire, which is the nar. So it's perhaps one of the most brilliant metaphysical parables, because the hypocrite doesn't have an internal light. They kindle a fire. meaning they rely on external temporary sources of light. And remember, we know about hypocrites. It's not about a person who shows different faces to different people. The reason why they show different faces to different people is because they're disconnected from their own tawheed within. And so this hypocrite, when we lie to ourselves, when we rely on external temporary sources of life, like the social benefits of community or the intellectual concepts of faith or the worldly status, what happens? When the external fire burns out or the truth exposes itself, which is the nur, when Allah takes away the nur, what's left is nar. Subhanallah. This anxiety, the burning heat and smoke of anxiety and regret, this anxiety of the future and this depression of the past. And we're left in this multi-layered darkness called zulumat. Noor is one, zulumat is many. Noor is one haq, tawheed, remember singular. Zulumat are layers upon layers, because these are the layers we choose to veil ourselves in when we begin to act from a place of insan only and forget that we are ruh. We have a creator, we have an owner, and we have a place of belonging. We have home. We have home which has a fire kindled within it, which has a beautiful family within our ruh, which is the family of Ummah. It has a leader, which is our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The batin aspect of me, which is the ruh aspect of me, is magical. We call it the metaphysical aspect. The magical aspect is the batin aspect that dictates the zahir aspect. It's a law of echoes. What is within will come out without. So when we forget that and instead choose to veil ourselves with these chadar of zulumat, that is when we're unable to see our own reality. And what happens as a result? Because Allah Ta'ala is very clear in this bayan of Quran right now in this moment. Allah Ta'ala has an entire anatomy figured out, and so to that anatomy, because there is this a spiritual atrophy that's taken place. So there's the atrophy of the spiritual senses. Deaf, someone, we can hear physical sounds, but our spiritual ears cannot hear the call of truth. Dumb, bookman, we can speak worldly words, subhanallah, but we're incapable of speaking the truth from the heart. Umyun, we are blind, our physical eyes work, but the Baseerah, you see, the gift of the Fitrah is the Baseerah. The fire that's within the Fitrah is the fire of Baseerah. It's the eye of the heart. The fire of the heart is completely blind. So because of this atrophy of the senses, of the spiritual senses, there is a point of no return. Because remember, law of echoes, when we shut down our original faculties within ourselves, when we shut down the radio station within ourselves designed to receive divine signals, we reach a state of what happens to a piece of machine when it's not used? It begins to decompose, it begins to rust, and then it doesn't work. So we reach the state of metaphysical stasis, and so they will not return. They have locked themselves. We have locked themselves from the inside out. Subhanallah, I remember I wrote this, in the very dark times of my life, which I feel was my internal fire coming back online, and I could not stand it because when our internal fire begins to come back online, the external fire begins to go out. Such is the power of the internal fire. I wrote this one-act play called Darwaza. It was set in a Baghkhana, and it was set on this one woman who was writing letters. She's a poet. Of course, she represented me. She's writing a letter to her son, and in poetry. And through the letters, we find the journey of her wounding and her own choices. And we believe that she's stuck in a Baghkhana because she keeps pleading her son to come and rescue her, plead in her poetry. It was very beautiful, if I say so myself. It was very beautiful pieces of poetry. It had a lot of dard in it and a lot of shikwa in it, and a lot of longing in it. And towards the end, there's only her voice, and she keeps writing on the walls, and she keeps writing on the mirror that she has put a cloth over. Mirror of our heart. I didn't even know how many analogies, how many metaphors lay within that at that time. And so towards the end of the play, she has a visitor, and it's her son. And the visitor comes, the son comes, and she says, he gives her a news. I will not Maybe I'd want to act this play out one time in my life, so I'm not going to give it away. So the son comes and, the son gives her some piece of very good news. And she said, oh my God, okay, great. Then that means that I'm not insane. Can you please open the door? Can you please let me out? And he says, Mama, kundi andar se lagi hui hai. Subhanallah. And that, just writing that and speaking of it today also, it just blows me away. It just blows me away. We wait to be rescued our whole lives. We wait to be seen our whole lives. We wait to be heard our own lives. We wait for people to listen to us and to be here for us our whole lives. And yet we believe that we're trapped in cages of our homes, of our life circumstances, of our relationships, and therefore somebody else must have the key. Nobody else has the key. Nobody has ever had the key. It's always us. We're the ones who've locked ourselves from the inside. And so in these 8 verses, Quran maps the descent of a soul. Subhanallah. Hellfire, Jahannam, happens much before the actual vibration, the actual frequency of the ultimate Jahannam. And it happens with the descent of a soul in this world. The descent of a soul, with the first step is, it begins with this subtle self-deception. It begins with one step, and then it goes on to complete spiritual ossification. That's the descent of the soul. And when we are not aware, and this is where we get it wrong, we say, it's just one thing that I'm doing. It's just one small lie. It's just one, I'll do it this time. This one small thing is where it begins from. A lie, and we know how powerful of a lower vibration magnet it is, because one lie is the first step to self-deception and to complete spiritual ossification. And if we believe we are the exception to the rule, then we're in the illusion. We're in the illusion. We're not an exception to the rule. It's a very slippery slope. This human experience, it's not just because we are who we are. It's a very slippery slope because we are having a human experience, and the whole human experience is a slippery slope to the descent. And the whole divine experience is a beautiful elevated flight, which is the ascent. And through that descent, if we can find our wings again, that is the power of the human divine, which is Islamic, which is Insan Kamil in Ibn Arabi's perspective, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so if we just were to look at some aspects of the root words here, because what we've spoken of is perhaps what we can already gain from the ayahs. Perhaps one thing that's one thing that's shifted for us is our concept of a hypocrite, because we believe it's just one person who has many faces, but we forget that a person who has many faces begins from the first time when they first one lie to themselves within. And so if we believe that we do not carry, because Allah Ta'ala would not have spent so much time on hypocrisy, and as a big chunk of Quran which is all about hypocrites. So it's not about them. It's not about those people. It's about us. It's about when we choose to lie to ourselves. When we, for example, when we really, really, really want something, when we desire something so badly, and there's a part of it that's not right, and we know it. It's not right because of what it is. It's not right because of what we'll have to do. Perhaps it's not right is because what it's asking us to become, a choice that it's asking us to make. Some small aspect of the desire is not right. And very quickly, because we really want that thing, we say, forget it. You know what? I'll just do this one small thing which is not right. The rest of it is right? No, wrong. The small part of it which is not right is that's the stumbling block designed for us. And if we don't stumble on that block, if we don't do that one small thing for the sake of the thing that we really, really have wanted our whole lives, in that moment, then the law of echoes steps in. And it gives you something bigger, way bigger than our desire. And again, remember, in the whole anatomy of desire, the same way there's an anatomy of hypocrisy, there's an anatomy of every energetic thing has an anatomy if you were to tune into it. So the anatomy of desire The physical components of the desire may change, but the soul of the desire will not change. That means whatever we have desired, the specific aspect of it, which is the anatomy of it, the shape of it might change, but why we desired it, what we wanted through it, will not change. When we receive the cosmic gift, which is the cosmic version of that desire, if we just don't compromise on one stumbling block, then we will get the cosmic representation of our desire, and that's going to blow our mind, because that's something that one is not temporary and something that stays with us for a very long, like temporary, and it gives us benefit. It gives us benefit in a way that that sweet water cannot quench thirst, but cool, sparkling, fresh spring water quenches thirst, and it quenches thirst for a long time, subhanallah. And so our temporary desire, the anatomy of desire might be that sweet water, but what we'll get is that spring water if we don't act upon that stumbling block that sweet water is designed to have for us, so that we can elevate our desires through it. And so in Islamic metaphysics, which is irfan, these verses are described as the tragedy of a soul that stays trapped in the world of multiplicity, which is khalq. में बहुत variety है ना, बहुत कुछ है. And how does irfan stay trapped in khalq? Because it's mistaking its ego intellect for haqq. It's mistaking what it wants, what I wants, from haqq, which is the truth, which is aligned to the divine. So now we're going to just explore some of the root word alchemy, unlocking the etymology of some of the words used in these ayahs to really understand and I want to say the vibration of these words. So fasad, which is used in ayah 11, fasada, and actually, we know it means corruption, but it originally refers to a date or a fruit becoming rotten. Just imagine, subhanallah, a date or a fruit becoming rotten, or a joint slipping out of its proper socket. Ab dekhein, you start from fasad cannot exist without fitrah, because in both a fruit becoming rotten or a joint slipping out of its proper socket, it means that something was in a state of balance, was healthy, was prosperous, was in proper proportion, and now it's deviated. A date or a fruit has become rotten. A joint has slipped out of its proper socket. So a fasad is not possible. When we begin to say that, they are who they are, these people are because their dada was like that, the dadi was like that, the father was like that, and the son was like that, and of course they must be like that. And they are who they are. That cannot be true, because the fasad cannot exist without the fitrah. That means that there was an original fruit or an original date that made veiled decisions again and again and again to reach a place of atrophy where they became rotten. There was an original thing in balance that came out of its socket. And so in the spiritual sense, this is coming out of removing ourselves from our original place. Kufr comes from the same, to remove something from its original place. So there is an original place. And so therefore in metaphysical dimension, fasad is actually cosmic dislocation. When we lie to ourselves, or when we say, I'm doing this bad thing because ultimately I'm going to be fixing things, and they say Muslimun, we are actually there, or what we call hypocrites. So we are actually, if we're doing it, actually pulling things out of their divine orbit. We're actually disrupting the hierarchy by putting the ego nafs above the spirit, which is the ruh. And so when we say, oh, what all is well that ends well, no. Or I am doing it for the greater good, this one bad I'm doing for the better end, no. That is the fasad, because anything that is dislocated from its original place is not upon fitrah, is fasad. And so you'd see that there's ripples of fasad that originate from people of fasad, that overtake their households, overtake their families, overtake the neighborhoods, overtake the country. Kyunki, look at the state of our country. There's an origin of Fasad that originated from my heart, and it spread to my family, to my neighborhood, to my city, to my country, and to the Ummah. And every heart must take ownership of one ripple of Fasad that it sent out. Because Fasad is not a big revolution. Fasad is that one lie that we told to keep the peace. Fasad is one thing we decided to hide to keep the peace. Fasad is this one person we decided to bring down to bring somebody that we light up. Fasad is when we chose to break something that did not, that was fine. Fasad is when we chose to look at something as broken just because it didn't fit in with our definition, but it did fit in with the divine definition. We tried to change it. All of this is Fasad. We are shifting things from the original divine alignment out of the divine orbit. And again, for this is the energy of Fasad. So there's an original Fitrah that needs to which needs to exist for Fasad to happen. And then our perception, which is Shar. Because Allah Ta'ala says in Ayah 12, yash'urun. Sha, ra, and an, sheen, and ra. Now, shar, which is a perception, is derived from shar, which is hair, bal. So to perceive something via sha'ur, look at the poetry, look at the magic of this, means to sense something so subtle that it feels like a hair brushing against your bare skin. It is also the root word for shair, poetry, which captures these elusive emotions. So when Allah Ta'ala says, La yash'urun, they have lost their spiritual subtlety. They do not have this intuitive sensitivity. They do not have this fine-tuned spiritual instrument that's needed to feel the subtle presence of divine in truth, even if the truth is hidden in a layer of darkness, which means that we do not have the subtle sha'ur. We do not have the sha'ur, not subtle, we don't have the sha'ur to notice the decay of our own souls. We notice the decay of our skin as we grow older, of our gums, of our bones. Subhanallah, the white of our hair, and we try to fix it. We try to fix it. This is basar. This is the physical eye. It's not Baseerah. This is not Baseerah, the inner eye, not the eye of the soul. This is not sha'ur, to look at ourselves in the external mirror and say, this is what I am losing because of my age, because of how I'm looking. Sha'ur, in fact, asks us to look within in the mirror of our own hearts and evaluate, do the tazkiyah of what we have lost in our journey till this point and what we have gained in our journey through this point. And from this point onwards, sha'ur, because we have the inner Baseerah, we have the inner fire of Fitrah. Sha'ur also guides, lights the way forward, and lights the way forward for us, where we might look like we are in loss. See, look at the beauty of sha'ur, where the sha'ur invites us to look at a moment in our life that may look like a moment of loss for any other eye, which is looking which is looking from the external eye. For basar, it might look like loss. Sha'ur asks us to perceive, because this thing is commanded by the divine, because this is commanded by the divine, and because the divine is Subhan and Rahman Ya Rahim. What is the subtle gift this perceived loss is bringing to my soul, which is going to balance out in my ultimate cosmic reality? Subhanallah. What was I lacking before that this perceived loss through my sha'ur is now bringing to me a hint of benefit that might help me make my journey ahead easier, and ahead not just through this life, but through all lives that are through the cosmic reality, through the cosmic eternity. Then we look at Nifaq. Nifaq, which is the word used for hypocrisy in these ayahs. Nafaqa, the etymological meaning, I don't know, the meaning. comes from Nifaq, which is this tunnel, which is a subterranean tunnel. It's dug by a desert lizard. It's called Yarbu. Now, the way it's unique, the way this lizard digs the tunnel is there are two openings. There's one obvious entry point and a secret paper-thin, nafila, paper-thin escape hatch that it can burst through if it's cornered. Subhanallah. So, when we have our legs in two boats, we have two options. This whole concept of how many options do you have? This is a nafaq. There's only one option, which is the option of Allah, which is aligned with truth. There is no other second option. There's no other. There's only one. So nifaq is the ultimate state of internal division, where the soul creates a dual existence. There's a tunneling between the outer world of appearances and a hidden inner world of doubt. And we never really quite commit to either. So when we keep vacillating, when we keep oscillating between 2 points, where we are one for the person in the house and one for the person outside the house. These are the 2 points. If we keep like a pendulum swinging through these 2 points, then we are in a state of nifaq. We are committing nifaq because there's a disruption in the inside world. Looking at it from Ibn Arabi's perspective, which is the mechanics of illusion, again, we've covered this. In the spiritual hierarchy, there is the Ruh, which is the divine light, which is Nur. There's the Qalb, which is the mirror, which is the heart, which is caught in the middle. And then there's a Nafs, or the ego, the veil, or the Nar, which is the fire, which is multiplicity. And the entire idea for us is to be able to reflect the divine light through the mirror of our heart to the multiplicity, to the nafs, to the dunya, to the veil, to the nar. So it's almost as if we are the conduits of divine light, which must flow through the mirrors of our heart and outward onto the universe. And it is through this nur do we view the universe. So for Ibn Arabi, if you look at it from his perspective, Ayah 11 and 13, where we are meant to be the reflectors of divine light, this particular human heart, which is caught in nifaq, this is a mirror which is meant to reflect the divine light of the Ruh. This mirror has become rusted and warped because it faces entirely towards the material world. So agar koi ek satellite hai, which is meant to face north, because it's meant to receive its signal from the north and come in and give those signals to the south, when it begins to face south, it's not receiving signals, and it's created to receive signals from the north. So when it faces south, it begins to, because it's not created for this, it's not a part of its design, its divine design. Facing south actually robs it of its divine faculties. It actually begins to, it begins to accelerate its decay because it's not receiving the divine signal that was created to receive. So we are going against our tabiyah, against our fitrah, because there is because we are designed a different way. And when the verse says that we are told people, then when they are told, believe as the people have believed, who are the people that Allah Ta'ala is referring to? Who are the people who have believed? People who have believed are the people who are in the state of tazkiyat nafs, people who are constantly in this process of cleaning the mirrors of the heart, cleaning the mirrors of the qalb so that the divine light can shine through. When you meet somebody and you enter a room and you can just feel Allah in their presence and through their presence. Those are the people. Of course, they're all the prophets, subhanAllah, but all the people who've come after them were people of Allah, which are the wali of Allah. They all believe as the people have believed, because they have reached a place of fana in the divine. But the hypocrites, people whose satellites are facing the south, they call this foolishness, sufaha, because the intellectual vision is trapped in logic, in veiled logic. If it's not preserving me, if it's not helping me advance, if it's not helping me gain something, what is the point? So to give up our own ego, to give up our own desire for the world, and again, that does not mean that we don't end up living in the world. We don't end up giving up our desire for the world is what? Not to end up not wanting. It's not letting our wants and desires control us to a point that we are on a leash, and the desires are holding our leash, and they can take us this way or that way, and we're not rooted, we're not aligned. But it is when we are rooted and we are aligned from this place, when we begin to desire, then there's only one leash handler, which is within us, which is Allah. And that leash handler is what? Subhanallah, what a leash handler. He doesn't believe in leashes. He's breathed into us. He doesn't believe in that. It's just going to breathe through us. When he breathes through us, and all the desires that we want begin to happen for us under our command. We are not subservient to our desires. The universe begins to rearrange its components to serve us. The universe was created to serve us, but we have given it the power for us to serve it. Subhanallah. And this is the entrapment, the istidraj, which is Ayah 14 and 15. Because when we give that amount of power to the universe, to the world around us, when we allow the world to control our yeses and nos, control our days and our nights, control who I'm going to worship and how, control who I'm going to love and how I'm going to look in the way that I love, and who I love and how. We're given so much power to this world. There's a metaphysical law of manifestation. The universe will reflect to us exactly what the soul projects, what we project. And so if we have used our world, if we have turned our antennas away from the divine, which is the north to the south, then we are only going to get the entrapments of the south. Because remember, south is the world of illusions, is dunya. Dunya is not just temporary, it's an illusion. So when we are deciding to look at illusion and feed on illusion and live with illusion and try to benefit from illusions, then we are the deluded ones. And in those deluded ones, Allah, the universe manifests itself, because Allah has many attributes. So the 99 names of Allah, 124 names of Allah. Allah has beautiful attributes. Allah has Ya Muzil, right? So Ya Muzil will begin to reveal itself to us. Because the universe, remember we talked about Tanzih and Tashbih? In Tanzih, Allah is separate from the universe. In Tashbih, there's an active will of Allah manifesting itself in every moment. And so, but we have these deluded sense of what Izzat and Zillat look like. उसने सच बोला, उसको नौकरी से निकाल दिया, वो 6 figure की रोशनी थी, वो कितना जलील हुआ है. Subhanallah. That's the world of illusions, Aladat. The world, look at how Allah Ta'ala speaks of zillat, of people who are prolonged. Allah Ta'ala prolongs them in their transgression. How? Allah Ta'ala grants them health, wealth, success in their deception. And this is the ultimate metaphysical trap, which is istidraj. They mistake worldly ease for divine approval. And the more they mistake that for divine approval, the deeper they wander into the labyrinth of their own making. And that's what we've done to ourselves also. We all have, in small moments or big. And we know people who continue to do that for themselves in the smallest affair of our social lives and in the biggest stage, on the biggest stage of the world. And so when we begin to be deluded and feed ourselves on illusions and live on illusions and create and think those illusions are our gods and give those illusions power over ourselves, then what are we doing? This goes back to now Ayah 17 and 18. This is a parable of a fire kindler. So to kindle fire, we use the rational mind to gather further information. There's an extra about the world, how it works. We hack it. We say we've hacked this code of life, and we become really super rich or famous or really well liked or excel in whatever we want to excel in sports or science or physics or whatever, or business. And we have successfully lit an external fire. External fire that's needed to navigate the social world. And it gives off a temporary warmth and a structural clarity. That's what happens. But then, because it's an external fire, because this is nur, because this is not nur, this is nar, because this is nar without the light, which is nur, which is our fitrah, which is divine, it inevitably begins to experience, and it will always experience, the loss of light when a crisis hits or when the physical body dies. Because remember, the loss of light does not necessarily have to come in this world. When any moment of an external condition shifts, Allah removes the nur, because the heart never truly owned it. And the state of darkness, the removing of the nur, dark night of the soul, when all we have worked with is nar, which is fire. This is also the wake-up moment for all humanity. But if we don't wake up from it, if we continue to persist in that illusion and delusion, then what we're left with is smoke. Because there is a nar, fire. When you're trapped in nar, there's a raw burning heat, whether it's of the ego, of revenge, of passion, of regret. All of these raw burning heat moments, they come with a thick smoke of their own illusions. And because we are now wrapped in smoke, again, we're looking at it from Ibn Arabi's perspective, from, of course, from a metaphysical lens. The deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return. So, subhanallah, deaf to what? Because there's an original al-alast, the address of Allah, the covenant made between Allah and all humanity's soul before they were sent to earth. It originates from alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? To which every soul replied, Bala, yes, we testify. Subhanallah. They don't remember, they can't hear those words. They can hear some words, but they can't hear the divine command, who is your Lord? You are. The capacity to speak the truth, because we did say, yes, we testify. We did say, Bala, you are. But our speech does not say it. We are not in the practice of zikr that resonates with the reality of our fitrah. So even if our tongues move, because we are not in acknowledgement of who our Rabb is, it's empty noise. And because we cannot hear the original promise, which is the divine word of Allah, which is the divine command of Allah, alastu bi rabbikum, and because that does not dictate our speech, what ends up happening? We lose our sight. Sight is the last one to go. We lose Baseerah. So we can see the physical world, which is the mulk. That is, we may be able to read the Quran. We may be able to understand. We may be able to know the translation of it and understand the physical aspect of it. But there's a Baseerah aspect. We are blind to the unsealed realm of Quran, which is Malakut. There's mulk and there's Malakut. Subhanallah. And so going within the depth of, beyond the definitions, looking at the oceans that lie within each word, those can only be journeyed with Baseerah. Both are barhaq. The eye, the physical world, the physical eye, and the inner eye, both are barhaq. But the inner eye dictates the physical eye. And so when the same eye, when aligned with Baseerah, when they look at the same word through Baseerah, the word shifts like an ocean shifts. The world shifts like a kaleidoscope of light and begins to reveal all the different facets that it hides within itself. But the process of, this is not the end. This is not the end. Even if we have lent too much power to the physical world around us, Baseerah is not something that we need to build. It's not something that we need to somehow go out and search of. We have it. We have it already. Although the physical eye is, when the physical eye is limited to the world of shadows, now in both the Ghazalian lens, which is the Sunni lens, and the Akbarian lens, which is Ibn Arabi's lens, both of them, they're aligned on one thing. The physical eye, basar, is limited to the world of shadows. They call dunya the world of shadows because it is the world of illusions, while Baseerah is the organ designed to see reality as it truly is. You know, when we can just meet a person, we can just see through. It doesn't have to be bad. It just can be, even if they're smiling, you can see through. It's like, hey, are you feeling okay? Baseerah. You're looking beyond what you can see to what is within. And so the process of reconnecting with our Baseerah is the same. It's the process where we begin to do tazkiyah nafs. It's when we begin to sit down with our hearts and begin to remove the veils which the veils of distance, the veils of darkness, the veils which only allow us to view the outer surfaces of things. Whereas when we remove those veils, we're able to see through time and space. No, it's not magic. When we say that we can travel through time and space, it is the divine faculty they're born with. We are born with, and that through this faculty, through the divine faculty of Baseerah, through this inner eye, we can actually go through the outer layers to the inner meanings, which is the original ma'ani. So जिसे हम लोग मानी कहते हैं, इसका मानी क्या है? So there is a loves and there's a ma'ani. There's a reference, but then there's a depth to what it actually is, the haq of it. So by default, every human being is born with a beautiful spiritual lens, which is Fitrah. But every moment of indecision, distraction, of sin, of obsession with the material world adds a layer of rust to this mirror. And so if you look at it from the typical disciplined lens, it's a spiritual discipline, which is mujahida, and purification, which is tazkiyah. So we do not create Baseerah. We already have it. We scrape away the rust through zikr and through surrender, obedience, until the existing light, the pre-existing light that we're born with, begins to naturally reflect through you. So this is a standard, or a more, I would say, a less wild version of Baseerah. And then there is a wilder version of Baseerah. Because one says, this wild version, the one that we just read of Baseerah, says that there is a divine reality. Our heart is the mirror. Our heart is blocked with the rust of sins, and it's clogged or it's rusted. It's blocked by the world of sins and worldly attachment. That's all rust. We clean the rust of our heart so that the divine light can shine through our hearts. And because the divine light is shining through our hearts, we can view the world with the beauty of divine, view the world as reflecting the beauty of divine within, right? But then there is a wilder lens. And the wilder lens, not the wider, wilder lens. The wilder lens is Anil Haq. Wilder lens says, which is Ibn Arabi's lens, it says, there is Al-Haq, which is the divine reality. It has an identical light, which is the Baseerah. And through that Baseerah, when we view the world, we begin to perceive Allah, tashbih. We begin to perceive the active presence of divine in every moment of our lives, in anything that we perceive in the outside world. So the wilder lens says it's not just divine light reflecting through our hearts, but it is our light meeting back with the divine light, so that there's only now one light perceiving the world. And as the one light perceiving the world perceives the world, it's the act of witnessing of God through Allah, through God. So from that lens, we are of the divine and divine. We cannot be the divine, because remember, there is a tanzih. The tanzih and tashbih both are together. Tanzih is Allah that cannot be perceived. Tashbih is He is in everything. When we bring the two together, there's a divine mirror. But a part of that divine mirror is shining the light through our mirror. This is Baseerah. And when I align my mirror to the divine light mirror, there's only one light now that's coming through. There's only one whole. And therefore, because now I'm only that one light shining through the whole world is I. The whole world is Allah. It's an identical light. And that's the transmutation of the aql into the qalb. Dekho, both are within. Aql and qalb. The word aql actually comes from iqal, which means to bind or to tether, like tying down a camel. So the rational mind, Akal, can only understand Allah by binding Him to a concept or to a limit or to a definition or to a religion. It only operates on, if you only use Akal, you only operate on Tanzih, that Allah is beyond, separate from. He created the universe and he stepped away from it. Baseerah, however, is the sight of the qalb. The qalb, which is the one which fluctuates. It does not tie Allah down. It perceives Allah in a constant state of dynamic self-disclosure, which is called tajalli. So Baseerah actually reconciles both the tanzih and the tashbih. Baseerah says that Allah is simultaneously beyond creation and intimately manifest. So मैं वो भी हूँ जो अर्श बरी पे है, जो आयतुल कुर्सी के मालिक, जो आयतुल कुर्सी है, हाँ, आयतुल कुर्सी जो उन्होंने लिखी है, मैं वो भी हूँ, and I am closer to you than your jugular vein. So both tanzih, both him and this, both depending on how and where my heart's mirror is, he is both the owner of that kursi, the creator of that kursi, and the owner of all world there is, and closer to me, and within me. Subhanallah, Baseerah is not something that can be explained, can be talked about, because it's not of the aql, it's not the faculty of the aql. Allah, when you look at it from conventional religion, is the faculty of aql, because we've reduced him to 99 names, which are like this and this and this, and then that's how he acts, and this is who he is, up there somewhere, and not us, not in my heart, and definitely not in the heart of a kafir, huh? Subhanallah. And yet Allah is depending on who's looking at the heart of the kafir. Subhanallah. This is what Baseerah says. Which is why जो वली हैं उनकी एक आंख जो है आपको काफिर से मोमिन कर देती है. कैसे? Because वो आंख जो देख रही है, वो आंख, Subhanallah, cannot perceive kufr. It's just pure divinity. Subhanallah. And as much as our qalb can reflect, and that pure divinity can perceive no kufr. It's subhan, it's beautiful, and therefore it's an operation that's done from the eye of the observer, which is the wali, to the heart of the receiver. And that physical operation shifts the qalb, because remember, qalb turns this way, shifts it from this way, that way, to this way. That's bas, iti si baat hai. But this cannot be, it can be talked about, we're talking about it, but it needs to be, there's a zawq of it. There's a kashf. The kashf, which is the unveiling, which is the direct tasting, which is what the mehfil of zikr allows us to do. Any mehfil of zikr allows us to experience that kashf, to experience the zaiqa. It's a tasting where we don't have to look at things or look for things. Look at Allah, look for Allah, because you've not lost it, because you are Allah, because Allah is within you, because it's not separate. Instead, we begin to see things as the outer waves. And that's how tanzih and tashbih, when we say you are Allah, what part of it? There is a divine ocean, subhanallah. There's a divine ocean, which is Allah, which is tanzih, which is Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. That's the divine ocean. But then the outward waves of that divine ocean. And the outward waves is this dunya. The outward waves is the multiplicity, is the khalq. And when we begin to perceive that khalq from the place of that divine ocean, and while being in that divine ocean, we're going to taste that multiplicity. It's a sensorial experience, and that's why it's called the kashf. And that's why Ibn Arabi said, I never saw anything except that I saw Allah within it, before it, or after it. Subhanallah. I'm just going to leave us this one beautiful concept, again, in the metaphysical world. And the concept is linked to the breath of the divine, nafas, one alphabet away from nafs, which is ego, subhanallah, and yet we say Allah is so separate from us. Huh? So, and that concept is of the concept of nafas, of divine breath, which is very intimately linked to the concept of akhirah and what eternity feels like, and how we believe eternity is then and it is not now. We believe that Allah will give us a never-ending beauty because we have not experienced it in this world. And at that time, when we experience Allah's never-ending beauty, then we will never get bored of it, because we will be in a different vibration, and that different vibration will be able to perceive and hold itminan and sakoon and hub and khubsurti and jamal in a different way. But it's not true. In the metaphysical world, there's something called the physics of the Jalli, which is the law of non-repetition. And what it says is there are two foundational laws as laid out by Ibn Arabi. There's the breath, this is the physics of the Jalli. There's the breath of the merciful, Nafasul Rahman, where the cosmos is being constantly exhaled into existence and inhaled back into the unseen at every single moment. So we are not a static entity moving through time. We are being completely created atom by atom, instant by instant, subhanallah. Now, how does it relate back to so many different concepts that we have learned in traditional Islam, in the way that we've looked at it from Basar? And this is how. When Allah says, the doors of forgiveness are open for you in any moment, in any instant, until your last breath. What is Allah saying? Allah saying that in every moment you believe that you are one insan, say it is Madiha, who's living in one moment, say for the past 45 years. And that's who she believes she is. And she thinks that this is the solidity of Madiha is what she perceives. From Allah's perspective, though, there's a part of Madiha being born and dying in every moment of what? In every moment of her decision, of her action. There's a new Madiha being born with every Nafasul Rahman, when she is aligned to divine, when she speaks truth, when she acts from a place of divine alignment. There is a part of her ego that's dying in every moment when she acts from that place. And in the same instant, every time that she's away from divine alignment, there's a part of her being born which is away from Nafasul Rahman. Not away from Nafasul Rahman. It is away from its it believes that it's away from Nafasul Rahman when she's acting from a place of disillusion. And there's a part of her that dies when she makes a different decision the next moment. So we like to think of ourselves as solid people with solid lives. But Allah looks at ourselves, Allah looks at us, Allah's energy, when it comes to us, because we are off Nafasul Rahman. We are constantly in a state of creation. Imagine the infinite potential of us. Imagine the points of many returns for us. Imagine how we do not have to be who we were even last minute. We say, no, I made that decision in the morning and I was angry, and that's how I'm going to allow myself to feel the rest of the day. That was then. I was born and died in that moment. And then the new one of me was born in the next and the next and the next. So when we separate ourselves from the continuity of us, we leave ourselves these immense oceans of potential to act anew. We don't have to take the same decisions. We don't have to walk the same paths. Not just the ones we have walked many years, but even the one that we walked. And even if we have walked them 1,000, why was that Rumi ka kya hai? Even if you've sinned 1,000 times, come. What is sinned 1,000 times? What does it mean? It means that for you, it may be 1,000 times. For me, what you are in this moment is everything. In this moment, you are. And in this moment, when you decide to act differently through Nafasul Rahman, then all the moments, how are all of our sins forgotten? What is that? Because in one moment, which is now, when we act from a place of divine alignment, when we act from our fitrah, we are born and die in this moment, but the Ruh of us received the benefit of having taken this decision in this moment, and the Ruh does not know time and space, and so all the past versions of ourselves and all the past future versions of ourselves in this moment have received that benefit. Imagine, subhanallah, feeling the fullness of that benefit. And so Allah, when He says that I have the doors of forgiveness are open in any moment, that means we have the potential to be anybody that we want in any moment, every second. It's never too late. It's never too early. It's never yesterday. It's all now. And so the breath, which is why our breath brings us back into the now. It opens those multiple doors for us, because our breath, when done in a rhythm, which is the rhythm of zikr, is aligned with the breath of the universe. And remember, the law, that's the first law, which is the law of the first, in the physics of the Jalli, the first law is the law of non-repetition. The breath of the merciful. We like to hold on to the past. Allah does not. Nafasul Rahman. It's all gone. Breathed out, breathed in, breathed out, gone, gone, gone. New life, new life, new life. He's a creator in every moment, in every breath. And so we're not a solid entity, moving through time. We are being completely recreated atom by atom, instant by instant. We are the ones who hold ourselves to the chains of our past. Allah is recreating us with our beautiful potential in every moment. And the second law of non-repetition mein hai कि there is no tajalli, no self-disclosure, no act of Allah repeats itself. Because Allah is infinite. Because He never reveals Himself in the exact same form twice. No two moments, no two leaves, no two hearts, no two heartbeats, no two human faces are identical. The divine manifestation is a river of absolute, unrepeatable novelty. Subhanallah, the tragedy of the human condition is that our aql gets bored. It categorizes a tree as just a tree, or a rainy day as just a weather. But that traps us in the static idea of time, this illusion where there's a divine flash, a tajalli happening right in front of us, and yet we wait for the Red Sea to part for us, or subhanallah, we wait for Mount Tur to break for us in our lives. And the act of this, and subhanallah, Ibn Arabi says, we are, my heart is the tajalli. What am I waiting for? What am I looking for? My heart is the tajalli. Training the eye of the heart, Baseerah, is deconditioning the mind. So we witness the constant renewal. We witness the constant renewal. And this cultivation of hera. I used to do that even before I came to know all of these words, subhanallah. And that's the Baseerah. It's not I who used to do that. I remembered what my soul already knows how to do. We all know how to do it. It's that in the hardest moments of my life, in the moments where I felt the dirtiest and the lowest and the most lost, I would say, okay, and on a random moment, I would say, I'd be in a car, sitting in the back seat, and I would say, okay, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm just going to open my eyes like a newborn is opening their eyes. I've never looked at the world before. What's my name? Where am I? Oh my God, look at that before. I would do that practice. Why? Not because I wanted to just witness the beauty of the world outside, but because I wanted to get into the practice of witnessing my own beauty, the beauty of my own heart. Subhanallah, the potential of a human heart. Subhanallah, the resilience, what we call the resilience of the human heart is a state of hera. It's a profound wonder when scientists begin to study it. Where does this come from? This extreme empathy, this generosity, this sense of being able to get up and keep going, of not giving up. Oh my God, where does this come from? This is a state of fitrah. And we practice the state of, for me, the easiest thing is to practice hera. I love this sense of awesomeness of a purple flower, of a sunflower. The sunflower gets me every time. Depends on which state my soul is in, but sometimes the sunflower that gets me, sometimes the color purple that gets me, subhanallah. And the other practice is the practice of the breath. And the practice of the breath is breath work, is the act of witnessing the moment, the waqt that we are in this right now, and to relieve ourselves of the chains of the past and the future. And to know that when we align our breath with Nafasul Rahman, that is where the tajalli is actually taking place. And this is the act of purifying our mirror, to align ourselves back with the divine light, so we'll be able to reflect it and perceive it both, not just within, but also without, because there is a law of echo. What is within is without. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim.